I appreciate your willingness to present on this foreign direct investment and the reintroduction of the survey. I'm glad that you're going to be talking about, how the implementation is going, what the timing might be, and what's the data that will become available at the various geographies locally. With that, Amanda, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you to kind of finish doing your self-introduction and what is going on with the BE-13. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, Amanda.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeremy, for that wonderful introduction. I want to welcome everyone here today for this overview of the BE-13 Survey of New Foreign Direct Investment in the United States. As mentioned, my name is Amanda. I am the section chief in the New Foreign Investment section here at the Bureau of Economic Analysis, and my section is responsible for the BE-13 survey. As Jeremy alluded to, we have several goals for today. I'm going to provide a review of the foreign direct investment data that is available from BEA. That will include a summary of direct investments. What is the data that is, what is a direct investment, and what is the data that is available? I'm also going to provide an introduction to the BE-13 survey that will include a brief review of the history of the BE-13 because this is a relaunched survey, and I'll also discuss the data that we are collecting. Included in that introduction will be a review of the investment transactions that we are covering, and then I'm going to conclude with our plans for releasing the data. That will include our expected timeline and the anticipated data that is available. And as Jeremy mentioned, please hold all questions to the end if you'd like to speak them verbally. If you do have a question that comes up during the presentation and it relates to a certain slide, there is a slide number in the bottom right of all slides. Simply preface your comment with that, so when we are getting back to the end of the presentation, we can easily find where your question originated. What is direct investment? Direct investment is a single entity in one country that has a 10% or more voting interest of a business enterprise in another country. The investor or the parent has to have influence or management of the influence over management of the business, which we call the affiliate. That 10% voting interest threshold is an international guideline which is intended to separate direct investment from portfolio investments, where investors do not have day-to-day control of the business enterprise. BEA collects data from U.S. companies involved in these direct investment relationships. These include what we call inward direct investment, foreign direct investment in the United States, or outward investment, which is U.S. direct investment abroad. BEA produces several foreign direct investment in the United States statistics. Currently, one value that we produce is the quarterly transactions and positions between the U.S. affiliates and their foreign parents. As I mentioned, this data is published quarterly and is a cumulative value of foreign direct investment positions. Also, it is the financial transactions between foreign direct investors and their U.S. affiliates. We also annually publish comprehensive data on the activities of U.S. affiliates of foreign multinational enterprises. Most of this data is delineated by country of ultimate beneficial owner and by industry of the United States operation. Some data include the sales, employment, trade, research, and development expenditures. For employment, we have measures of total compensation and also the count of employees. Those employment counts are also available by state. The trade measures that we provide for annual data is the U.S. exports of goods shipped by foreign-owned affiliates. We also have the track of U.S. imported goods import of goods shipped to foreign-owned affiliates. The research and development measure is a measure of total expenditures on research and development. Again, this is categorized by ultimate beneficial owner and by industry of the U.S. affiliate. Additionally, we publish total capital expenditures by country of UBO and by industry. With the release of the 2014 annual MNE data, we are expected to have state-level property, plant, and equipment expenditures available. Finally, we arrive at the reason you are all here today. We will be releasing data on new foreign direct investment in the United States, which is the BE-13. The BE-13 will provide investment and basic operations data on new foreign direct investments in the United States. The goal of the BE-13 is to identify and quantify new investment in the U.S. by foreign investors. We want to differentiate growth in foreign direct investment from new U.S. enterprises versus growth on acquisitions. And we do this by collecting data on greenfields investments as well as investment through acquisitions. We make this differentiation because we do care if it's a matter of the acquisition of existing U.S. operations or if foreign companies are starting or expanding their operations. This is where the greenfield measure comes into play. Basically, we want to know, is the pie growing or is the pie just being sliced into different shapes? We will also differentiate if the funding is coming from the reinvestment of U.S. profits or is it coming from across the border. As Ken mentioned, the BE-13 is not a brand new survey. Its previous iteration was stopped in 2008. The current iteration has relaunched in late 2014. The new BE-13 has launched with collecting several new data points and new transactions. The biggest thing to remember here is that we have started collecting expansion information. The BE-13 will be collecting comprehensive data on the investment transactions by foreign investors or their U.S. affiliates, which include the cost of investment, which is separated by foreign parents and their U.S. affiliates. We will also be collecting employment information. This will be current and projected employment numbers. The projected employment will only be collected when there is a newly established business or the expansion of an existing U.S. affiliate. The BE-13 will collect financial and operating information of the U.S. business enterprise. This will include information on the sales, assets, liabilities, and net income. For acquisitions, this is based on the previous fiscal year. For establishments and expansion, this data is projected by the survey respondent. We will also be collecting construction expenses if applicable to the project. These include land, intellectual property rights, and property, plant, and equipment expenditures. We will be collecting updated information on these project costs until the project is finalized. We will also be collecting the industry, not only of the U.S. target, but also the foreign parent and the ultimate beneficial owner. Finally, we will be collecting the location. The location is the country of the foreign parent and the investor. We will also be collecting the state of the U.S. target. As I've alluded to in my previous slides, there are 4 types of investments that are covered by the BE-13. These are acquisitions, mergers, establishments, and expansions. Each time a company engages in one of these types of transactions, a BE-13 report is required. If a company engages in no qualifying transactions, no BE-13 forms need to be filed that year. But if that company engages in 5 qualifying transactions the next year, 5 BE-13 forms must be filed. These investments can either be direct or indirect. Direct investments are where a foreign parent comes over the border and performs one of the 4 transactions listed in the first bullet. Indirect investment is where a U.S. affiliate of a foreign parent performs one of the 4 transactions. It is important to note that acquisitions and establishments can both be direct or indirect, but mergers and expansions must be performed via an existing U.S. affiliate of a foreign parent. Regardless of where the funding comes from, we want to capture this transaction. So the important thing is not that money crosses the border, it's that there's that 10% or more voting control by a foreign entity. We will be collecting full reports for all transactions that are valued over $3 million, but all new foreign direct investments in the United States must be reported. The transactions that are under $3 million can be reported on a shorter form, which we call a claim. Even with that distinction, all new foreign direct investments will be included in our aggregated statistics. Now I'm going to provide a little bit more detail of what we mean by these 4 transaction types. The first transaction that we cover is an acquisition. An acquisition is where a foreign entity acquires a voting interest in a U.S. business enterprise, and that acquired entity will operate as a separate legal entity, and at least 10% of the voting interest is now held by that foreign entity. All acquisitions of voting interest where a single foreign entity already holds at least 10% voting interest are excluded. Those are already counted as foreign investment relationships and are out of scope for the survey. So a change in ownership of 9% foreign ownership to 11% would be reportable, but if a foreign entity held 45% and through the acquisition held 90% at the end of that transaction, that would not be reportable. Transfers of foreign ownership are also excluded. For example, if there is a German-owned car factory in the United States, which they then sell to a Japanese car manufacturer, that would not be reported. Again, that's a scenario where the factory was already foreign-owned. We just care about the new foreign ownership on the BE-13. We also exclude personal use of real estate. However, all purchases of real estate that are intended for lease or sale without significant added construction are included here. Finally, once a company becomes foreign-owned, it should be filing one of the ongoing BEA foreign direct investment surveys, such as the BE-605, which is the quarterly survey, or the BE-15, which is the annual survey. The next transaction that we cover are mergers. Mergers are very similar to acquisitions. It's again where a foreign parent or a U.S. affiliate of, a U.S. affiliate of a foreign parent acquires a U.S. business enterprise, and that acquired unit is then merged into its operations. Again, these are treated very similarly in terms of definition. The third transaction that is covered on the BE-13 are establishments. Establishments are where a foreign entity establishes a new legal entity in the United States, and 10% or more of that voting interest is held by that foreign entity. As I mentioned earlier, this can be direct or indirect. So if a U.S. affiliate creates a new company below it, and the foreign parent indirectly holds 10% or more of the voting interest in that established company, that transaction would still be reportable. These establishments include the creation of a new legal entity, whether incorporated or unincorporated, including a branch. The establishments include real estate construction that is intended for lease or sale. It is important to note that we do not require physical operations for an establishment. As long as a new company, a new business enterprise was established, that is what is required here. Finally, the BE-13 covers expansions. As I mentioned, these are new to the BE-13 and were not covered in the previous iteration, which ended in 2008. Expansions are where an existing U.S. affiliate of a foreign parent expands its operations to add a new facility, including construction or lease of a new facility, or construction intended for lease or sale. These expansions exclude the transfer of existing operations from one location to another. We also exclude the upgrade of an existing facility, and we exclude the replacement of equipment. These exclusions are set up because we want to capture true expansions, not investments that maintain existing operations. This is quite a lot of data that we are attempting to collect here at BEA. So we have set up a few different methods that allow us to collect this data efficiently. Our primary data collection method is the electronic filing system called eFile. eFile is a web-based survey with paginated navigation. The eFile system offers real-time data validation and feedback to the survey respondent, which leads to better data quality. If the user chooses not to use eFile, they can access fillable PDF forms, instructional videos, and frequently asked questions on our website, www.BEA.gov/BE13. BEA does proactively attempt to identify transactions that could be eligible for the BE-13, and we will reach out to these companies by mail to inform them of their filing obligation. We have multiple sources for these potential transactions, including news articles, industry journals, industry databases, and other BEA surveys. Filing is mandatory by law whether or not contacted by BEA. All BEA surveys, including the BE-13, are covered by the International Investment and Trade and Services Security Act, which is a mouthful. It basically means, again, all filings are mandatory. With the BE-13, survey response is required. The data of the individual companies are confidential and cannot be disclosed. The data can only be used for statistical purposes. I'd like to mention here that BEA does have a special sworn researcher program that academics or other members of the public are welcome to apply to, which allows researchers access to the micro-level survey data. If you'd like more information about that, please go to the website, BEA.gov, and you can find out who to contact there to start that process. The BE-13 data has several potential uses. The first use of BE-13 data is to assess the impact of foreign direct investment on the United States economy. The BE-13 data can review trends in the industry or countries that are investing in the United States and the industries that are being invested in. BE-13 data can also advise foreign investors who are seeking to invest in the United States. These foreign investors can assess if their product or service is in demand as a U.S. business. Finally, BE-13 data could aid national and state policymakers in developing programs to attract foreign direct investment. BEA does not provide any analysis of this data. We are strictly a statistical agency. We always say that BEA is policy informing, not policy determining. oops, missed it. With all the data that we are collecting, we are hoping to have comprehensive data available on investment in the United States. We should have comprehensive data on all 4 transactions: establishments, expansions, acquisitions, and that acquisitions measure will also include mergers. We will have the total cost and number of investments, which are the tallies and dollar values. These will be delineated by the industry and state of the U.S. business enterprise and also by the country of foreign investor. Again, we will have subcategories of establishments, expansions, and acquisitions / mergers. We will have a count of the number of new investments and the aggregated dollar value at the lowest level of detail allowed by our disclosure policies. We'll also have total investment outlays. We will have the financial and operating information of the U.S. business enterprise, again at an aggregated level. These would include the number of employees and the sales numbers. We hope to have information on the total assets, sales, net income, and employment of the U.S. business enterprise by industry or by the country of the owner with the largest investment. BE-13 publication industry levels are expected to include detail at the manufacturing, wholesale, and retail trade. We also expect BEA tables to have a crosswalk of investment between country of foreign parent and industry. For example, we could see the investment in manufacturing by Japan. We are currently collecting data for 2014 transactions and 2015 transactions. Data covering new investment in 2014 should be available in late 2015. This would be the preliminary 2014 data that would be available. This data will then publish annually, and all data will be viewable at the website that is listed in the 3rd bullet. This website also includes historic BE-13 data that will be under the last header on that web page. Also, the BEA data that I mentioned before, the ongoing direct investment data, is also available at BEA.gov. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention and interest in the BE-13 Survey of New Foreign Direct Investments in the United States. I hope you found this presentation informative. If you'd like to know more details of when the publication will become available, please send me an email at amanda.budny, B-U-D-N-Y, @BEA.gov. and I will contact you when we add more information to our website. You can also feel free to give me a call at 202-606-9844, and I'll try to answer your questions. I know that Jeremy is recording this presentation, so I'm thinking that it would be available afterwards. Jeremy, please correct me if I'm wrong.
It will.
And oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it will. I've got it recorded, and I'll make it available.
Okay, great. And if you have any questions, I think now's the time.
As people pull their questions together, I've got a couple just to start it off. You made a comment that you'll be collecting it even if they don't have a physical location. How will you aggregate that data? Is there going to be just a U.S. location, not otherwise specified?
We haven't finalized all details of the aggregation at this point, but we would have an aggregate, total U.S. investments, and then if we have location breakdown, we would have total U.S. and then underneath that the breakdown by region and by state if that's available. And so if it didn't have an actual state, it would not be included in any of the state information.
So, and now you're making the connection for states. Will there be some point in the future you might have it at a sub-state level? Or you just don't know yet?
Unfortunately, I don't know yet. I do know that there is quite a bit of interest in the sub-state level. A few weeks ago, I actually attended the Select USA conference here in DC and talked to quite a few economic development organizations who really, wanted it at the, Los Angeles County level.
Right.
But unfortunately, it's a bit early to tell if we would be able to have that level of detail, but I do know that it is in great demand.
Janet's got a question here, and it says, if a German-owned affiliate is sold to a U.S.-owned company, is that transaction recorded as a decline in new direct foreign investment?
We do not collect the, on the BE-13, we do not collect that. However, that German-owned company would be responding to one of the other BEA foreign investment surveys, and that would be captured on those surveys.
Now, it seemed like the direction of the foreign direct investment was to capture new market transactions and activity, but this would, I think what Janet's really getting at, this would be the very opposite. If this is supposed to be a function of, is the economy growing from foreign direct investment, this would be the opposite. You wouldn't capture the reduction of foreign direct investment? Or well, I'll leave it.
Go ahead.
No, I'm just a little surprised it wouldn't capture the opposite of where the foreign direct investment, if overall if it's decreasing.
Oh, again, that would be something that would be captured on at least on the annual surveys that show the full financial and operating information and positions of the foreign investment. So they would actually have that decline recorded on their survey, but that is not something that's captured on the BE-13.
Do you have any perspectives from the old data of the countries that have had more direct investment within the United States?
Unfortunately, that's something that I couldn't speak to at this time. I do know that it's very dependent on a multitude of factors, but that would be something that I'd have to research a bit more and get back to you.
Okay. Well, I wasn't sure if the older data that before it was discontinued, you had the perspective of the foreign direct investment in those comments. I don't see any other questions that are out there. Do you have any other closing comments that you'd like to share, Amanda?
Let me just double check my notes here. Just want to reiterate that we have one more question from Janet, and I think it's directed to you, Jeremy.
Yes. So Janet, I will provide the PowerPoint and the recording of this. We'll probably post it to our website, and then we can send a link out so that it doesn't fill up people's email boxes.
I just want to close with, again, thanking you for all of your time today. I know that you all have very busy schedules. If you come up with any other questions, please feel free to give me a call here in Washington. If you have general BE-13 survey questions, or if you have anything about, the form, if you're reviewing the form and you find something you don't quite understand, you can call the BE-13 Survey Assistance Line, and that's 202-606-5613. That line's staffed every day during normal business hours here on the East Coast, so about 8 to 4:30 Eastern Daylight Time. Otherwise, I thank you for your attention, and I hope everyone has a great weekend.
Thank you very much, Amanda.